if you release everything, you are either releasing every email ever sent at Twitter since like early 2020, or some form of curation is happening at some point, whether it's by Matt Taibbi or the lawyer guy or somebody who decides those emails, right? I can understand why you wouldn't want to just release every single email in Twitter, but like, who's doing the curation and why?
Welcome. My name is not Arman Asadi. I do not have the silky smooth voice of Arman.
Or
You got a cool hat, bro.
bloody nipples on AI art.
Yeah, that was weird.
Wait, what?
Well, I don't know if they were bloody or they were just
No, they were
exposed.
bloody. You took it to the next
Well, they were
level there.
red.
So I did an AI art Lenza app,
You looked like such a Chad.
and I was just like, it made me all jacked.
Did you show those to the wifey?
Not yet. Some of them, a couple of them. But there was
She was
one.
like, "Be
well,
right
I didn't
back, I
notice
have
it. I didn't notice it. I have this like tight shirt on in one of them, but for some reason my nipples are exposed through the shirt.
I thought
There's,
it was
like, a hole.
I
for
thought it
my
was
nipple.
blood through the shirt.
No, that's my nipple.
Wait,
What's
wait,
this
that's
app?
what you
Lenza.
that's what you
Lenza.
fed into the AI, or
No.
that's what it's. Okay, I'm just.
you didn't.
asking
You didn't
you.
go nipples first.
Input picture of myself. Actually, no nipple pictures.
Damn.
Yeah, it just gives you. It even gives you a little warning, like, "Hey, if you don't like what you see, don't blame us." Like, it's the AI doing the work here.
All right. Well, Arman's nipples are sponsored by 8 Sleep. You use the code Alfalfa.
Actually, it helps because if you ice the nipple at night,
Right,
yeah, to
right.
help it
Cool
heal.
it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can determine
you
the
sleep
temperature.
Dick down.
No, yeah, for sure. You guys know. Cock punch down.
Me too.
Do you guys stomach sleep? Ever?
All the time.
It's terrible for you.
No, I literally can't sleep any
That's
other way.
fake news.
I can't sleep any other way.
Yeah, it helps me go into a deep slumber.
Wait, so how do you listen to podcasts at night? Do you go one AirPod in?
Oh yeah, I rotate.
Okay,
'Cause,
so do
like,
I.
Yeah,
But mine's Bloomberg. I don't listen to podcasts.
Yeah, I know you
I
do.
go Bloomberg.
You
Yeah,
guys
all
are
right.
crazy. Listen to podcasts.
Literally
at
in the
night?
middle of the night, probably around 3:30 a.m. I'm like, my left ear hurts, and I literally, probably without even thinking, I just switch to the right AirPod and I just turn over.
That sounds
Professional.
Do you ever? Okay. Do you ever get sleep anxiety if you don't have the Bloomberg? Because I'm at the point now where I can't sleep without a little bit of podcast.
So there's like
going on.
a whatever
You
14.
guys should listen to this dopamine episode by this Alfalfa podcast. What is going on?
Oh, yeah, it's
over
pure
here?
dopamine.
Fucking just all night you're listening to podcasts?
That episode unlocked a lot of things for me personally, where I've like reconfigured the way I think about a lot of things I do. Like I realize how powerful dopamine is now. It wasn't something that was on my radar prior to that
Interesting.
episode. So thank you guys.
Back to 8 Sleep?
Yeah.
Yeah, what about
I don't know.
it?
I thought that fulfilled our
that a
requirements.
transition?
Our 8 sleep requirements. Was that not good
Yeah,
enough?
buy it.
Okay.
Hurry up and buy.
It's very good.
They're gonna like, we want a refund.
It's very
was
good.
this?
It's good.
Is good.
My brother says that's very good. Yeah, link below.
Cool.
Use our code Alfalfa.
Yeah, I
Amazing
think you had
device.
another $50 off.
Yes.
Cool.
Amazing device. Anything else?
Eric, what are we talking about? We're talking about Twitter today. So
Oh my
Twitter.
god, you guys! The Twitter files. The Twitter files
Wait,
dropped.
before we talk about the Twitter files, though, we have to talk about our
Alfalfa Twitter.
yes.
Alfalfa Twitter files.
So our Alfalfa Twitter has just been like a Nothingburger, right? For a while. Like it's just been like kind of here and there, posting our videos.
Yeah, here's the
Hey,
problem.
new episode.
There's 4 owners, and nobody's taking clear
No.
ownership of it between the 4 of us.
Don't you dare point the finger.
Well, when I wake up, I'm like, I don't know about you, but I'm always like, you know what I need to do? Spend more time on Twitter.
I know.
I need
I'm
another
actually-
account.
Can I be honest with you? And please leap on this. Our Twitter being so good now is making me spend more time on Twitter. I don't know if you guys have noticed.
Well, you're kind of anti-Twitter to begin with. Like
But
I
I'm
think
kinda
the
liking it.
3 of us are more Twitterer than you.
And I'm
But-
bathing in I'm in the water now.
What a revolutionary move by Alfalfa Pod to.
By who specifically?
Well, yeah. So
By us to outsource our
Oh
Twitter.
my god, he's
No.
Rectum's just
No.
like, I'm gonna kill you.
we
guys.
want to give a huge shout out to our Discord community member, our beloved Rectum, who like took the reins, took the mantle of Twitter ownership for the Alfalfa Pod. He's done a phenomenal job of like increasing engagement, being hilarious. Like
He's absolutely
we're
hilarious.
having a blast just watching what he posts, and it's like I think it actually is a little bit it's like kind of nouveau, like to allow a community member to like take over your social media. Like that's
Are there any other podcasts that just let their audience run their Twitter?
But like also, I think our podcast. Like I don't think we think of our podcast as us for talking to Mike. Like it's more. I think it's maybe even more weighted to the Discord and like what the conversations are happening on there.
It makes sense that someone from the community runs our Discord.
It makes even more sense than us. And I personally found it fucking hilarious.
This man,
And
I think
He's a goat, by the way.
Yeah, he's one of our.
absolute
His
goat.
name is pronounced Rectem, right?
No, rectum.
No,
Rectum.
Steven. It's
Okay.
rectum.
Like your rectum.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
that-
he
I
left
got
it
the
up
play
for
on words, but
he left it up for interpretation for this exact moment.
But I want to give him
happen.
even more credit because I know he's studying for something. He's working a full-time job in like a commercial real estate career, and he still finds time to fucking shitpost for Alfalfa Pod in a
And
hilarious way.
He has ginormous quads.
No, the calves.
Calves.
Well, both.
Okay.
I'd like to see the quads.
Quad to calf ratio is right.
I'd like to see
basically.
the quads. I'd like to see
Yeah.
those.
Well, we don't know how long we have him for doing this, but we appreciate every moment of it. And
it's
it's
amazing.
been a lot of fun for us. I'm sure it's been a lot of fun for community members to also engage with it.
I don't know
So-
if anyone will ever top it. I'm open to seeing that. If anyone thinks they can,
I
top
do.
it, but
I request
the
from
goat.
from the rafters more calves. Can I get a little more, please? I think he's
I
underplaying
wouldn't
his
mind a
calves.
weekly calf photo. But yeah, we love you, dude. Appreciate you, and yeah, thanks for volunteering to do that.
Amazing.
Amazing.
So while we're on the subject of Twitter, we're going now into the Twitter files.
Yeah.
These were leaks from Elon.
Yeah. So Elon decided to publish or maybe open up internal emails to a third-party journalist to say, I think his mission in this endeavor was to show the cobwebs, show what happened behind the scenes in an effort to increase transparency so that maybe trust might be restored.
Okay,
with
can
Twitter.
I ask a question before I'm overwhelmed? I'm excited.
We do need a
Wow.
summary.
How
do
Already
you?
overwhelmed.
Yeah,
Go
I'm
on.
already overwhelmed. Do you guys just want to like free for all this and duke it out and just yell at each other and have like take over take, or is this like a structured thing? Because I already have a question.
Give me, what's your question?
Well, my first question is just like, was that the right thing to do? To give it to a third party source and not just like leave it up to the public to decide and be like, here are all the files. Here you go. You guys make sense of them. Like first part of the situation here is
Right.
the format in which the information is being delivered.
And then how do you decide this?
How do we
these-
trust?
these two people?
How
Are
do
the
we
people that I
know?
want to disseminate
Yeah.
the information?
Yes,
Because it's causing questions already. It's like, on the one hand, I looked at it and I was like, this is great. This guy was like left leaning. It's perfect.
But it was two people, right? It was Matt
Yeah.
and Blair or
Barry.
something.
Barry
Barry.
Weiss.
Sorry, yeah.
And then on the other hand, I'm like, yeah, I see that counter argument point pretty clearly. Like, you could just. Did you guys see Jack's tweet today? So
No.
Jack tweeted Elon was like, look, dude, like, if this is really the situation, why don't you just release all the content and like leave it up for the people to decide
Instead of sending it to a journalist too?
yes,
Like,
yes,
oh,
and piecemealing it as well.
Yeah.
And then he responded by saying like he did the memes in response were amazing because he didn't answer the question. It was actually not.
you think he's just entertained by all this?
I think so. I think that's my take on it. He basically was like, dude, like we're finding this information out as we find it out, and we're releasing it as we find it out, and that's it. That's the best I can give you.
Steven, you want to give like I don't know, just a quick summary of like what was released? Like why are we even talking about this in the first place?
Yeah, let's start there.
Because I think we should probably talk about what.
Give it like with like a context of like the gravity of the situation, because as I'm looking at this from an outsider, like I immediately think like I don't care too
He's
much.
skeptical. Is like, why should we even care?
Yeah.
About
So like
this?
include that in your summary, please.
Are you talking to Chat GPT
Yeah.
or Steven?
Also,
In the style of
do
Salvador
this in the
Dali.
No. I was gonna go say Dr. Seuss.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Style
yeah.
of Dr.
Please make it
Seuss.
rhyme.
In the voice of the King James Bible, tell me what's going on right now.
In the beginning.
In the beginning, there was a Twitter that allowed free speech.
Yes, he's doing. Keep going. Yes.
No, it's
No, I can't keep this shtick up. I mean, the background is pretty simple. We had two, I think, like monumental moments, right? One was the banning of the sitting U.S. president from
Huge.
Twitter,
Huge.
and then the other was earlier than that, just a few months earlier, which is basically what in my opinion at the time was sort of like systemic, like coordinated suppression of like the Hunter Biden laptop story.
So you felt that way at the time?
I mean, at the time I was like just screaming at the clouds like a crazy person. Like this is like I was full tinfoil.
So you feel vindicated now at all?
I mean, none of this is like nothing I read is in the least bit like it's not at all surprising to me.
Cool.
It's just all what everybody with like I think half a brain, expected.
It's not surprising, but isn't it surprising that we're finally getting proof?
It's a relief that we're getting proof.
It's not surprising is not the word.
Yeah.
So quickly, what happened though?
Well, what happened way back in the like in the last election, which is not that long ago.
This is weeks before the election.
This is weeks before the election. The New York Post came to market with a story. They had acquired like Hunter Biden's laptop, the information on it. Apparently, he took it to a store to fix it and then went off and smoked some crack and never picked it up in spite of the owner of the store's like, hey, come get your laptop. And then he sort of, I guess, saw some interesting content on it, ended up in the possession of the FBI. There were interesting videos that came out, like him literally smoking crack with prostitutes, and it was a whole. There was a lot on there, and at the time there was already a lot of chatter about why is Hunter Biden, going around the world like picking up bags of cash in China and Ukraine, and he's while his dad's in the White House. This was under the Obama administration. He was getting paid, I don't know, like very, very fat sums of money to be a consultant for Ukrainian energy companies and all sorts of crazy stuff. And people had understandable questions like, hey, why? And like people on the right, people even on the middle, I think, who were just like skeptical people were like, hey, why is this story getting banned? But it wasn't just like the story was sort of like, it was full on assault. Like you couldn't DM this story to somebody. Like if you tried to even message the story to somebody on Twitter, it would like block you. Kayleigh McEnany, the press secretary for Trump, was blocked off Twitter for like asking questions about it, just simply like kind of quoting stuff that was already in the media. Man. I mean, it was
and at the time, no one knew why. They were just like, are they censoring this? Are they not censoring this? Like, why is this thing not being shared? And it was definitely like a whole news cycle around this topic, and not the topic of the laptop, but the topic of why can't we share this on Twitter? Why is it being quote unquote censored?
Well, remember their initial comment was like, "Oh, this violates our policy against hacked materials," to which obviously Twitter people immediately threw like 7,000 instances of previously hacked where they didn't seem like they cared and were like, "Why is this a line item? Why do you care now with this?" And there were a lot of warranted questions. It became very obvious very quickly that was like a lame excuse that didn't cover stuff. And then we saw this story also simultaneously like squashed from Facebook and a whole bunch of other stuff in a coordinated fashion. People were like, "Why is this all coordinated? What's going on here?
Cabal.
Where's this invisible hand moving all of this stuff together?" It seems kind of like weird.
Which is the same hand that fucking crushed Andrew Tate and every other situation that we've seen, just like that. There's been a very coordinated effort.
I look forward to the Tate files. I mean, this has been happening.
It's coordinated.
It's been happening.
There's coordination.
It's been happening since Alex Jones, right?
Yes.
The end of Jones from Twitter. And I remember getting into an argument with a kid I went to college with at the time. This was like a long time ago. And I was like, you can't, you may not like what he says, but if you ban this is bad precedent. All this stuff will happen. And he was basically like, nah, he's like a fascist. Like, well, we'll just ban fascists and everything will be fine. And it's just like, I don't know. But then quickly that line in the sand just kept moving.
That's
And
why
now
some people fight so vehemently. Is that how I say that? Vehemently against that line moving. It's important. It's like it is everything. And if we allow any level of this in America, of all places, we're fucked. The rest of the world is fucked when we allow this, because America is the gold standard in freedom. If we allow this shit to happen, the highest levels of corruption. I know I'm going off here on a tangent already, but like, dude, like this shit is really important. It's scary and it's unbelievable that there's this level of corruption happening right before our eyes. And we're supposed to have this incredible constitution that protects these exact things and prevents these exact things from happening. And yet, from the highest level of our administration and government, this is what's being driven, top-down policy.
Well, one of the examples of screenshots was basically like, hey, more links from the Biden administration to ban, and
Yeah,
someone
so get specific, man.
just responded, handled. There wasn't like it didn't seem like a process to go through. And I would particularly like to go a few different avenues with this, and maybe you guys can pick, but I want to go like, who is Matt Taibbi, and why did this, the source of the news, Elon, choose someone like Matt Taibbi to like announce this and disseminate the information? I think that's interesting to talk about. There's backlash against Taibbi from traditional journalists for talking about this, which I find very interesting and weird, and that's one. There's a whole middle management problem of Twitter. Like Jack didn't know about this, and then there also seems to be, like in Congress and K Street, like lobbying firms, there is this revolving door, or maybe it's only one way, from the FBI into Twitter specifically. And there's like an article I found that like went to LinkedIn and showed more than 10 examples of people moving from the FBI into Twitter, and we could just talk about it. Is that
every time the word
is that
FBI
a bad thing?
Came up in Twitter Spaces yesterday, the Twitter Spaces basically silent. I don't know what the fuck was going on. That part started to feel really
There's
weird.
the burden of proof part. Like, should Twitter provide proof before it does it, or where does that lie?
Well, let's zero in on some of this.
Yeah,
stuff.
so like,
I'm
where do
curious,
you want to
like,
go?
What everybody's like biggest thing that jumped out at you was when you read these files or just sort of thought about this. Like, is there like a couple points that you're like, oh my god?
Okay, the biggest one to me was that how it kind of landed soft, like in general. And you had for the last 7 years both sides fucking quibbling and complaining that like we're getting censored and this is an issue and we need to regulate tech. And it was just kind of like a hypothesis that this was happening, and all the decision making was happening behind closed doors, and we didn't know, just kind of like we saw this thing happening. And now we have the startings of proof of like screenshots of emails, and it's just kind of like,
By landing,
Meh.
do you mean the response overall? Okay.
yeah. And
Not the delivery.
And I think
right?
it's because like both sides are kind of incriminated in this, like maybe one side more than the other, and they're like, well, if we kind of like, agree with this, we're kind of incriminating
Well,
ourselves.
are you also referring to the response by the mainstream media around this topic?
Well, there's two responses. One, I think they like shut it down, and then
shut it
two,
down.
they went after Matt Taibbi as a journalist to even publish this thing.
Sure they did. That's perfectly in line with the strategy that caused this whole situation. It's the same thing continued.
And their angle was, oh, you're just doing PR for this rich guy. The one of the wealthiest people on earth, you're literally doing his PR work. And I find it very ironic that they mention that because, well, first of all, the wealthy guy is showing the bad stuff of a company he just bought. This is not like a flattering PR that he's
terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible PR for a company that he just bought and needs to grow. And no mind that like some of these journalists are coming from the Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, look in the
and, like,
freaking mirror. They're all mouthpieces for. They're like, oh, what happened to speaking truth to power? Like, they're all like mouthpieces for other like agents of power in the ecosystem here.
Yeah, I thought the definition of journalism was like doing research and finding scoops and like publishing
That's
so they get to
a very 1974 definition.
Yeah,
of
anyway,
journalism.
We've lost all objectivity.
So
This
to me,
whole
the
thing
big
is-
thing was just like the reaction of it seemed muted.
I mean, I kind of disagree with you that it was like soft. Like, there was a bunch of stuff in there which I thought was like pretty gnarly.
Well, no, that's why I clarified his statement. He said the delivery was fine. The response was soft.
You thought the response?
I
was
just
soft?
thought that like, after 7 years of this being a very
The reaction should have been more.
Yeah, like-
you expected more fireworks.
I think so.
I mean, there are a lot of fireworks. We're talking about it. We're doing a podcast on it, but we're in a bit of an echo chamber ourselves, and you're expecting more of a splash.
Yeah, I think so.
overall?
Like the
Yeah.
reaction, like, oh my God, vindication. Or, a lot of it was like, well, there's not really that much there. And he shouldn't have published this anyway because he's working for a billionaire.
Well, I mean, did you see the latest kind of iteration of it and that revelation? Because I think that probably is going to end up explaining what you're saying about this sort of muted reaction and the maybe lack of anything that's particularly
You're
like.
talking about Jim Baker.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you maybe describe that so just people?
I also think what we have not done is more specifically say what this. we have not really hit at like what is the corruption here specifically, like why it's so bad and why it's so egregious.
Yeah, I guess the corruption is
need to be a
specifically
little more
representatives of the Biden campaign
There you go.
emailing their contacts in Twitter saying you need to take this down.
But
There you
that's
go.
not the root of the corruption, because like the evidence shows that members of the Trump campaign were also members of the Trump White House were also asking for stuff. Like the point isn't that like the White House was trying
It's
to intervene
where
in
they
stuff.
went, right?
It's the fact that like
Which side they chose.
yeah, one particular there were the sort of infrastructure of this organization is like immensely skewed to the left. Like somebody posted a screenshot of political donations and it was like 99.2% or something.
Correct.
And that's probably not because 99.2% is left. There's probably a bunch of people who are on the right, but are just like, yeah, I'm just going to shut my mouth, right? Because they sort of
I
know.
can tell you for a fact, working at Google in like 2009, 10, that era, that's exactly what it's like. And it still is that way in Silicon Valley. Like you follow this path or you're a black sheep. And you do not want to be a black sheep in a job, in a place of position of like, I'm here to ascend the ladder of success. Everyone follows suit. It's very important to believe what everyone else believes. And so you have this like incredible level of like, I believe one of the things I read was like, the first response was almost accidental. It was like, I think we should censor this to a certain degree. We're not sure what to do with this. And then what that creates is a cascading effect that follows one after another after another. A precedent is ultimately set, right? So it only takes one time. And that's why I always used to dismiss this idea, but now I back it so vehemently in that you do have to draw a line in the sand on certain ideas and certain things, because if you don't, you set a precedent. And once you've set that precedent of like, okay, we're going to subjectively choose to censor this idea, and it's because it aligns with our beliefs as a core group of people being left-leaning, it aligns with the way we think, and so therefore we're going to align with that ideology. And you do it one time, and that's all it takes for it to continue perpetuating into infinity. And once it does that, that line keeps moving and moving and moving and moving. And then all of a sudden, you find yourself in a position where there's no tolerance for anything that goes outside of that box. And that's the dangers. And that's what we ultimately saw, in a sense, isn't it? Like, we got into a situation where it started with one email, but then it may have been from both sides, but over and over again, they were like, remove this person, block this idea, don't allow this. And then censorship just went through the roof. And that's where it just gets to a level of corruption that we've never seen. I'll share one more anecdote. My cousin in Iran, my cousin's husband, one time said something to me that I dismissed, but that now has become incredibly illuminating. He said, something that I don't fully agree with, by the way, but I think it still illustrates a point. He said, it's so funny, like, with our government, we hate them. Like, this does not represent us. It's a regime. It's a dictatorship. But at least we know where they stand. We know exactly the level of corruption that exists because it's right in our faces. In America, you guys have no idea what the fuck is going on. You guys don't know left from right. There is so much corruption happening in your faces, and you do not realize it because it's hidden from you. At least ours is in our faces. And I was like, I dismissed that. I was like, no, I don't think that's true necessarily, blah, blah, blah.
I think the magnitude matters. Like in this case, we're talking about maybe the vice president's son took bribes for business dealings. That's different than like what he's talking about in Iran is like killing people.
I understand, but I'm going beyond Twitter files with that statement. I think there is a level of corruption that exists.
Yeah, I think
that we are so unaware of
you're
in
definitely
this country.
You're on something where it's like, okay, so if this exists, then what?
No. I'm not trying to do like that happened in our Discord recently as well, by the way, and I think it's a fair point. I'm not trying to do the Twitter files equals that. I'm just saying there is that level of corruption across our government and across our country in general. And I think it's something that we as Americans don't like to face because it comes with a huge cost to admit that there might be that level of corruption across different areas. It's a lot to swallow.
And I think, Eric, to like, why is this important to the average person in America? Like, I think the context matters. The fact that this came in within weeks of election and, could have changed election. And I have the personal opinion that it would not have. I think like Biden won by enough to, I don't think this would have changed the election if this story was allowed to be shared freely on Twitter. I don't think so.
That's surprising. I didn't expect that.
I mean, his margin of error was, margin of victory was.
But you also know how huge these stories become.
Well, because you can look back to.
Hillary probably doesn't win
Hillary Clinton would
the
be
James Comey incident.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton would
the flip side of this,
right? Where James Comey announced that they were reinvestigating her emails like days before the election, and then it turned out to be nothing, but they still announced it. And that story, in her mind, with a very slim margin of victory, could have moved it back and forth. I don't think in this scenario would have actually changed the results, but I think that's the significance is like the context of when this happened and what was at stake. And I think the people inside of Twitter understood what was at stake. I think there's a quote from, is his name Yoel Roth?
Yoel Roth had the most illuminating quote in all the stuff I read.
Yeah, do you remember it?
Well, it was the intro to all the stuff he said. He prefaced like a whole dissertation on why they needed to sort of like throttle or ban this with, given the lessons of 2016, ...
and the dangers.
And I was like, what are the lessons of 2016? What are the lessons of 2016? And like I think that these people who are running this organization and made this decision, like in their mind, they're basically like, we let Trump get elected by, like at best, they think that Russia manipulated social media, which is nonsense in my opinion. We can talk about that. And at worst, they think that James Comey shouldn't have just said true stuff and should have like withheld that information. Neither of those things are particularly great. But this whole organization, these people are also in these other social media organizations. They literally think like it's their duty to like save the republic, to prevent these things from happening. And it's like once people start thinking that in these sort of centrally controlled organizations that gatekeep information, like very bad things.
Don't you think that when you work in an organization like that and everyone is forced to think the same way, that you literally get brownie points for executing in the right direction?
Totally, and obviously you don't want to be a whistleblower. Like that will out you as an outsider.
But you saw some people in the emails like, hey, like, do we really think that we can justify this with hacking? And I saw one guy was like, there's going to be blowback from the there were people in that organization that knew, and it was very obvious that they used the hacking angle to suppress it, and then everybody really quickly realized like, oh fuck, this is not really reasonable, and they sort of rushed to cover their asses with that story. But it was just such a paper thin alibi, and it was very obvious it was all going to come out like this to anybody with two brain cells to rub together. And now here we are, and it's not surprising this is happening. But oh wait, like we talked about earlier, this Jim Baker guy. So Matt Taibbi's latest thing yesterday was the revelation that the papers and the files that he got were vetted before they came to him by this guy, Jim Baker, who is a attorney at Twitter, who happened to be an attorney at the FBI prior to Twitter, and he worked on like the Steele dossier and all this other stuff. So apparently he vetted these files. Elon didn't know about this. He sort of screened these files before. So Elon fired this guy, and now it seems very plausible that these things that we got, which already to me seem kind of bad, this is like the whitewash version of it. Like, I think we may see some smoking guns over the weekend or next week. It's going to be interesting to see what the unvetted, like totally uncensored files look like.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like the start of something, and they're probably gonna like build this out over time. But I have a question for you guys. So let's maybe like take a step back from the story a little bit, and like, should a social media network like Twitter or Facebook, should the burden of proof be on them that a story is propaganda from a foreign government or that it's result of a hack in order to censor a document? Like, should we say, okay, if you're going to censor this, show us the proof, or at least, show us something that makes us feel confident that there is at least something behind the scenes, that there's a proof? Or is it the opposite? Like, they can just say that this is propaganda and the proof is on everyone else.
Who are they to decide in the first place?
Okay, so in defense of Twitter, the FBI came to them and were like, hey, by the way, we're expecting some stuff to come out. And they specifically cited hacked material about Hunter Biden. And it seems like if you put the timeline together, while the FBI was saying this to Twitter officials, they literally already had the laptop.
In possession?
Yeah.
How confident do we feel about that? Like, is that like confirmed, or is this
I'm like
just a
75, 80% confident on that based on just some digging I've done. So I'm leaving some room to be wrong on that. But the FBI, I think, is probably the most egregiously wrong party in here. Like, you can kind of get behind Twitter as being like a business, and they're doing stuff at the behest of these government organizations who are powerful. What the hell is the FBI doing? Like, trying to shift elections. It's like they fucked up with Comey, and Comey in his memoirs, right, is very obviously visibly upset that he like lost through that election, basically. So we have this like organization. This is why when people like throw around this like deep state thing that kind of gets poo-pooed sometimes, there's something to that. There are all these people who have never been elected by anybody and who obviously like have a great deal of power to influence stuff that happens around us, sometimes without us ever even knowing. We would have never known this if Elon didn't just meme his way into buying Twitter, right? And they're not answerable to anybody. Apparently they can swing who the president is.
I kind of like wonder if the four of us were in that position, like working at the FBI, maybe under the Trump administration, and then this kind of comes out, and do you talk behind the scenes? Do you kind of put your thumb on the scales? Because like, he was the first president to kind of attack the FBI and like undermined their kind of like a third party take, their objective take on justice and attack. And it might have felt like this existential crisis. Like, we work for the FBI. We're this like important body of like the Justice Department, and we're getting attacked, and like they're questioning our authority and what good do we serve? Like, would we have maybe made the same thing as like a group, the same decision if you felt like this guy who just attacked us for the last 4 years, threw us under the bus, and not because of our personal egos, but because it affects our ability to actually execute justice, to do investigations, to bring people to justice that need to be. I'm not saying what they did was right, if what we're saying is true, but like,
just
would
maybe,
we have
maybe human? Yeah,
human. I don't know. I kind of go down that route a little bit, and I kind of think that maybe I would have been part of that without even, understanding.
I think if we
2020
would do that
hindsight significance of
hypothetically,
it.
we would be shitty, unprincipled people. Like, if that's how we behaved,
Yeah.
we'd be like putting our own sort of selfish needs, like, and thinking we knew better than like we're like overriding all of the structures of government and society, basically, to assert our will of what we think is quote unquote right. Right. This is when like society breaks down. It's like when everybody starts thinking that it's this like good versus evil thing, and they're so sure that their perspective is correct that they believe it's just to like break down all of these walls to like do it, and they're doing it in the name of good. But then once everybody does that, you don't have like a society anymore. There's no rules of law anymore, and it just becomes like two people fighting because there's no structure to that. If like the premise is, as long as I believe this is existential, I can do whatever I want, that's not a good principle. Everybody thinks that, everything goes to hell.
As long as I know that I can leverage trade these user deposits into a profit and get back their money, It is good.
And you're memeing, but it's like the same thing, right? Like in the best way you can look at SBF, like he believed that he could save the world if he just got the money. And because like he knew best how to use the money to save the world, it justified basically stealing it because like the ends would justify
fuck
the
that
means, you know?
Well, by the way, the reason we didn't talk about that guy in the money episode is because fuck that guy. And we're just completely over him. Yeah. That is, Eric, I want to talk to you for a second.
I'm all ears, baby.
You and I are very similar in the sense that, God, we see this stuff happening in politics and the media sometimes, and we just try to ignore it, you know? And sometimes it just comes and just shoves its face right in your face, and it cannot be ignored. This is fisting, Steven.
Yeah,
this is me fisting.
Shove it right in my asshole.
Fisting.
Yeah.
Your hand motions aren't matching your words.
I'm actually fisting rectum right now. Poor guy. Wow, he didn't see that
He
coming.
didn't deserve that.
He doesn't deserve
Well,
I can't wait to just cut that one line out of context, by the way.
you were really thrown off by the SBF situation, and that's also like one of the reasons that it exposed you to something that is true and exists that I'm trying to hit at, which is just a baseline level corruption across a large level of institutions.
Yeah.
And you eloquently said this is like the first time it really caught my attention, and I'm like being forced to look at it.
Right. And it's a great example because on this version, the Twitter files, I'm back to the other side where I'm like,
It's nothing.
I recognize it's not a nothing burger, right? Like somebody, I think it was Matt Taibbi who said like this part is a nothing burger, and I think it was our boy Eric Weinstein who was like, well, if this is a nothing burger, give us all the nothing burgers so that we can determine for ourselves what is a nothing burger. You don't decide, and I think that's fair. I think where I land on this stuff, and like this particular episode illuminated it perfectly for me, where it's like, I get that this shit matters, but I am so fucking selfish. Like, this is me talking to me. I'm selfish about it because I love that no one's letting this shit slide. But at the same moment, I'm also like, I've always held this mentality where like, I want to care more about the guy in the mirror than the guy in the Oval Office. Like, I would rather focus on my own shit. Like, like understanding investments, managing client money, going to the gym, playing with my kids if I don't have kids, but like playing with your kids, like calling my mom. Like I care about the stuff that matters to me, the individual, and being selfish about that.
Yes.
Then like I try not to get pulled in to where my energy and focus is diverted to something that doesn't directly impact me. Like if Joe Biden's kid, I don't even know his name, whatever Joe Biden's kid's name is, if that guy was like embezzling some money from the Ukraine, like that doesn't impact me. Maybe it impacts me indirectly. Like maybe now we're going to war with Ukraine, like, or we're supporting Ukraine in a war. Like obviously this has impacts on the world, but you know what directly impacts me? My health, my wealth, my relationships. Like that's where I choose to focus. It's very selfish. I recognize this.
I'm with you, man.
But it's like this whole episode, as we were researching it, like we chose this topic and I'm researching it. I'm like, I felt this like struggle internally where it's like, I fucking hate caring about the news. Like this like teetered on that like fine line. That's like, I get that this is big, but I also like don't care.
I'd like to come back at you with a quote, and I wish I could pull it up right now. Maybe Nick can and give me the actual verbatim. I believe it's a quote by Plato. Don't start with the name, but it's like essentially the price. Damn, I'm trying to fucking. Basically, he said something along the lines of like, the price of our ignorance toward politics is freedom. So the question I have for you is like, how much are we allowed to ignore the macro and what is happening in the political system, and to what degree does it affect us individually? Please, Nick.
The price good men pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil men.
It's so good.
It's better than what he said.
It's a lot better because his name is Plato. And yeah, so this indifference that you feel, which I have felt for a long time until very recently. When I read that quote, in many ways, my life changed because I realized that this indifference that I was choosing to feel was to be ruled. It was to pay the price of being ruled by evil men. Does that change your mind at all? Or
It just-
in any way make you think differently about this?
It helps me specify, right? Because like I did get fired up over SBF. And why?
Yes.
Because that is my niche. Like that
It was relevant.
it affects me directly. Like that is my line of work. So like in that case, I get fired up. And like in this other case, somebody else gets fired up. And maybe
Yes.
like self-interest is the best way to make this whole democracy work. That's like why
Very Ayn Rand of you.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like
very,
that.
very. Yeah. And to zoom back out, that's what it all comes down to, right? It's about who we are, our personal preferences, what matters to us, voting for ourselves to represent ourselves, and at the end of the day, there's a certain amount that we have to care about what's going on in the world, and a certain amount we have to care about what's going on in our inner worlds,
And
in our homes,
please
our
believe- like,
neighborhoods.
I recognize that this is a big deal. I'm not trying to say that it's not.
I know you're not.
I'm just trying to say that I'm glad other people are devoting their energy to it.
Can I
that
ask
frees
you a
me up to
question?
do other things.
Why do you vote?
The same reason anybody votes, for their self-interest.
But your vote, by all mathematical, economic, any equation you do, is literally worthless.
Well,
on an individual basis.
Yeah, and that applies both locally and for the president. Like
Yeah.
I've had this argument with my dad primarily, where I was like, no vote has ever been decided by one. You know, like even he's like, well, the local ones they get decided by 100,000. It's like, well, still
we're
not
back
by one.
to a utilitarian argument,
so-
aren't
Right,
we?
so-
In a way?
so-
Why vote?
Yeah.
So on this particular argument, I've landed on the idea that like the data matters. So like where my vote goes actually applies to data that they use to say like, oh, well, how does the public feel? And in that sense, there's a utility.
I would make the argument that doing what we do is like 10,000 times more effective than voting.
Oh,
Right?
totally.
Like your ability to vote is like you literally can increment change by one, your vote, and that's it. If you care about an issue, you can talk to people you know about it. You can have a platform and talk about it. Like you can enact change that is orders of magnitude
I
greater
agree
than
with you,
voting.
Stephen, but that's only one aspect of what matters in that conversation, right? Like,
But I'm just trying to pick apart
There's a
his
aspect-
rationale. He's
I
like, I
agree.
don't believe in this. I don't like this. Doesn't get me out of bed because it doesn't really move the needle on my self-interest.
This argument is the exact same argument I used with my dad. My dad was like, he goes, well, you can
I love talking to your dad, by the way.
email your congressman. And I was
Yes.
like, well, that still affects it by one. Like to Stephen's point. So like this is not the way to affect change. Like I told my dad, like,
Yeah.
what's the way to affect change? Like you want me to go stand on the corner with a billboard? Like that's not going to affect change. Maybe something like this does. Like maybe something like what we're doing here does.
Affecting change is one aspect. Another aspect is individual responsibility. If we all behave the same way, we've done an episode that was like mostly around effective altruism and utilitarianism. What would the world look like? Would you really want to live in that world where everyone was just only focused on self-interest? And if it came down to not wanting to vote because I didn't individually make a difference in that election, then we have no election. So ultimately, we all do need to vote because if we didn't, then we have nothing. So there's many, many, many variables within there. But to zoom back out, because this was a very, very good discussion, one I've wanted to have with you for a while, Eric. We have a situation where a huge amount of information has been released around corruption that existed in our government and power that has been held by a social media platform. So one thing that's been in the back of my mind that I wanted to mention to you guys is like more and more as time goes by. And by the way, check the like I am still very strong on this idea that like Elon Musk purchasing Twitter compared to Jeff Bezos and Washington Post is such a joke. Twitter, digital platforms that serve as the proliferation of ideas are so goddamn powerful. And the fact that he purchased this platform for whatever dollar amount and now has to like sort through dirty laundry and shit that has been going on for years and then decide what to do with it. The level of stuff this guy is going through is insane. I'm just trying. I'm opening a little door here around Elon and what he's going through, running multiple companies, and now all of a sudden his full focus is on Twitter and solving fucking freedom of speech.
But
Like,
I
this
love-
is insane.
I love that he's not solving the problem directly. He
Yes.
gives it out to the community. In the same way we gave Rectum the Twitter handle. It's like, you're better at this.
You're
Go
right.
run with it. Like Elon's doing the same thing. Okay, you can take this information and you can disseminate better than I can. You can like.
Do you like how he's been going about it?
I don't know a single thing about Matt Taibbi or Barry Weiss. I literally have no idea who those two people are, so that is not a factor for me. What I do like is that he's not taking that information and being like, "Let me tell you what happened."
I think if you want the bullet points, Matt Taibbi was, I guess you could call him like a former life of liberal. He had segments on Bill Maher. He was featured on Rachel Maddow, on what's the guy's name? Keith Olberman. The guy used to be sports. He had a segment on MSNBC. He was featured there. He was a journalist of the Rolling Stones who covered politics. Rolling Stones probably fairly easily classify in the liberal left. And then he kind of like I think self-proclaimed now independent thinker. Maybe criticism of both sides.
Barry Weiss left New York Times. Is that correct?
I don't know Barry Weiss's background.
Barry Weiss is
She was
a great
New York
writer.
Times.
Incredible.
Like her and Taibbi.
She was one of the first that came out and was like,
Glenn
what the fuck is
Greenwald.
going on?
There's this like niche of like left
Dark
journalists
horses.
who've sort of distanced themselves from the mainstream left, and they've gone independent, and they've become these kind of like countercultural figures that sit in between left and right. And I think they're interesting because they just have like Substacks now, and people pay them.
What are they
directly,
called?
you know?
Like Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson, Eric. What do you call those guys? The dark,
Oh, the intellectual dark web.
dark web. They're like
I feel
the
like
journalist
that thing is-
version of that.
Yeah, I feel like that we could bring that term back. I feel like it died.
Yeah,
But like
Let's
there's
bring it back.
something. Yeah, there's something to it about these people who are, and they're pretty much all from the left, which is interesting. They're all left people who have kind of like stepped
Owned
outside
by nobody
of their
anymore.
thing, and they're just asking. They're just breaking from ranks, asking questions. And I like Matt Taibbi, and I like Barry Weiss, and I like Glenn.
So as you analyze them, Nick, like you know these people better than I do. You look at them. I'm guessing. I'm going to put myself in your shoes quickly. I'm guessing you say, okay, so strategically, it's good to go with somebody who was formerly a part of the left.
Yeah.
It's good to go with somebody who was formerly part of the mainstream media, and then like that removes that attack vector.
I think that was exactly it. Like, I think that was like a strategic choice by him to choose someone from the left and maybe who's maybe found a center ground. But I didn't see Jack's tweet before we started recording. And I'm kind of like, as we've been talking, man, thinking about like, should you just like put these in a Dropbox
right.
and let everyone kind of decide? Or do we have to look at through Matt Taibbi's eyes, even though he has...
But like first, it was through Jim Baker's eyes. That's the big problem,
now
right?
now we're finding out that's
yeah,
true.
we just keep like seeing the information screened through somebody who somebody else thinks like it's just show all the information. Like I like a lot of what Elon's doing, right? But we should all be really skeptical because the Elon situation is way more dangerous potentially than the situation we had previously.
This was his response. Jack said, if the goal is transparency to build trust, why not release everything and let people judge, including all the discussions around current and future actions? Make everything public now.
Yeah.
Period. Make everything public now. Elon.
Easy for him to say. He's
I know.
fucking he didn't do any of it.
Well, this is the best part. Elon says, and he did do a bit of a fucking reach around. Most important data was hidden from you too. And some may have been deleted, but everything we find will be released.
Yeah.
So I think something like this,
So
maybe
he dodged the question.
he dodged it halfway, but
Dodged it 100%.
no, he dodged it halfway.
But I kind
He
of
didn't
agree.
answer the
He said,
question
"Why
directly.
did you
No,
do
but I
this?"
kind of
And
agree
he
too.
didn't respond.
Because the answer is
It's only a dodge
the
if you think
data
he's-
was hidden from you.
It's
We're
only a-
literally uncovering it right now.
only a
That's
dodge
not
if
a
you think-
response to why don't you just release
It's
all
only a dodge if you think he's lying.
He's only got 160 characters, bro.
like if he's being honest, it's not a dodge.
It's not a dodge.
It is. It's literally
It's a dodge of the question to address a more important matter, in my opinion, Although I agree that he dodged it.
Okay,
But
you explain it to
both
me.
things are
Why-
true.
Why,
Both things are true.
Why not release all the data, Armand?
Because
why?
some of it may have been deleted. So how can I release all the data?
It's hidden
You
and
don't
deleted.
release it all because some of it's deleted?
And the fact that, by the way, some of it was hidden from you too.
How is Matt Taibbi going to help you with the deleted data?
I don't
Is
know
he
about
like
Matt
a data
Taibbi.
recovery
I
specialist?
assume there's a lot
Doesn't make
going
any
on
sense.
behind the scenes. And
You want it screened by somebody.
Hold on, like if he's saying that the data is deleted and hidden, like how does he share that?
Well, he's
Share
saying
everything you have.
Yeah, just-
Everything you gave with Matt Taibbi, give
what
it to
if they're
everybody.
uncovering it hour by hour?
then
Why
don't-
not
don't-
give everything you gave to Matt to everybody? Why
So-
filter
I don't
it through
fully
Matt?
buy it either.
So Steven's
but-
Yeah.
point is, if you were sharing everything, you would say you're sharing everything instead of saying
It doesn't get as many likes on Twitter. Is that a good answer?
No, there's just like something else
Maybe.
going on here.
No, seriously. It's called marketing.
Like how did
Like,
this
it's
how did this
strategy.
lawyer guy
Like,
even
why
get
not?
his hands on the data and vet it in the first place? What is the chain of like
there's-
custody? and
there
all
is
this
something
Look,
to
the
say
same
about
way, by the way, Twitter is US News, New York Times, all in one. The fact that they want to release it the way they release it, why not? Let them release it the way they want
Why
to release
not?
it.
Because it's showing like you want it framed through a particular. Why not release it all at once? If what you care about
There is no one that's objective
Hey,
out there. We
good.
expect them to be objective.
there's some base.
Releasing everything absolves you of all
would be nice.
accusations that you are
Of
framing.
course, it's
in a
nice.
It would be
particular way.
nice.
I'm going to support Armand here. Like there is some level of privacy that does matter. Like you don't want to show the world like what's like who you dated in your past and everything. Like like there's not every piece of info that you want to share.
But I think that
Takes
privacy
time.
part is thrown out the window. Like he's willing to show like from to email subject lines. Like he's willing to like whoever was part of this, like your sunlight's going to get shown on you. So if that's the motivation, you know, why not put everything else? And I also think like we know Elon is like one of the greatest showmen on earth. Like he does
Yeah,
these
that's a big
presentations.
part of this.
He builds up
It's
hype.
marketing.
Like he knows how to do this. And I think it's like his one part entertaining for himself, but also he knows how to farm engagement.
Yes.
And it's
He's
instinctual to
actually
him.
trying to build his
but that's why
platform.
there's some-
This
By the
whole
way,
thing, this whole
is
thing
about
is a
user
market.
acquisition.
Yes, this whole thing to Elon
Come to Twitter.
is a user acquisition.
Of course it is.
But
of course
scheme.
it is.
If I could buy the shit coin that represents Matt Taibbi's Substack subscriptions right now, I would long that hard.
And frankly, I would long Twitter if I could, like, because this is proving
There we go.
the idea that like Elon is building this platform
Yes.
to be more meaningful than it previously was.
He has already done more in 2 weeks than this platform did in 2 years.
Look, there's a very obvious answer, in my opinion, to this question. I don't understand why nobody's saying it, right? Like the implication of like release everything is like, if you release everything, you are either releasing what every email ever sent at Twitter since like early 2020, or some form of curation is happening at some point, whether it's by Matt Taibbi or the lawyer guy or somebody who decides those emails, right? I can understand why you wouldn't want to just release every single email in Twitter, but like who's doing the curation and why? Like it seems weird. It's
I
like
don't disagree with
that's
that.
an important question.
Yeah.
But if
I don't
everybody
disagree
jumped, like
with
Jack
that.
ignored that, and then the response
But those,
from
like-
Elon ignored that.
But those
like, it seems
emails
weird.
are not
Who
the
the
public
fuck-
domain. Like
Who the
it's
fuck
not,
is going to sit and sort it? Somebody's got to
That's
sit
not my
and sort
point,
it.
though. My point is like somebody has to sort it, or you have to release
Okay,
literally.
but
Fine,
Steven, let's
but-
play that out. Everything gets sorted. The public has to sort it. Everything gets
No.
released.
Before the public
has to sort
sorts
it.
it, somebody has to sort it before the public sees
internally,
it.
he's saying internally.
Yeah.
like,
No, I get that, but who?
but like,
But that's my point. Like, at least acknowledge that there has to be some sorting at some point. Why is nobody? Why did he
Fine.
like? That's
Like,
like a very good retort.
I think
Why not
that's
say that?
I think that's fair. But like, it's not your right to read every email at Twitter either.
I agree with that. But that's my point. Like that's kind of my
You
point.
just
Like,
want him to say it explicitly.
No, I'm saying there seems to be something missing here because people are arguing around something where there's like a very obvious retort to it. Like the very obvious retort is somebody has to curate it because either I release literally every piece of communication that's ever happened on Twitter within a reasonable realm of the date, or I'm selectively releasing some emails to everybody, to the public. Even if I don't release it to Taibbi, I release it to the public. But still, somebody is curating those emails, right?
Right.
But maybe be transparent about who's doing that.
Exactly.
Yeah, like is there one person doing it?
Is it
there
a-
seven?
is it a
There's
process?
I feel like there's
Yeah.
some shell game being played
Yeah.
in front of us. You
describe the process,
Does it
make it a
make
little more
sense?
clear. Okay.
I mean,
I'm okay with that.
maybe Elon wants a certain narrative spun about it, like, and
That's
he
why
knows
I
that
bought
if,
this goddamn platform.
and maybe if he,
This is the first
He just
example.
wants the engagement to still exist.
This is everyone to play the cynical play. I'll play that. This is why he bought the platform. Come on, guys. This is the first bombshell in why we need to remove censorship, why we need to think about freedom of speech at all in the first place, why the level of corruption that has existed in mainstream media is unsustainable, why everything that we think we know is a lie. These are just the first bombshells in that entire approach of why he bought Twitter in the first place. This is just
I
the
am
beginning
skeptical of your
I think
fundamental
he's
premise.
reshaping the entire narrative of how we see reality. Reality is being reshaped by Elon Musk. That's why he bought Twitter. You know that. Everybody knows
No,
that. That's why we all argued over it in one episode. We said, what is the reason that a billionaire would want to buy one of these platforms? To shape the narrative. He wants to shape the narrative so that the question becomes, is he doing it from a good place or a bad place?
Okay.
And I might be naive in thinking that I think it's coming from a decent
You are
place.
naive. I think you've got a
Fuck it.
can of Elon paint, and you
Yeah.
go home every day. And you
I have
just
a
fucking
no,
huff a
not
big-
paint. Taint. Stephen, Tate.
Elon
I have
Tate?
Elon
Elon
Tate.
taint.
Smell enough
You've got
paint?
Elon taint.
Stephen,
paint,
if I
and you
had to
huff the
believe,
can.
if I had to believe that Elon was an evil doer and that
I'm
the
not
world was
saying
going to be
he's-
ended by
You
him,
don't have to believe that he's evil. You just have to believe
Well, then
that
which
he's
one?
manipulative and
no,
self-indulgent.
I'm
Vitalik,
right
if you're
in the
still
middle on
listening,
all
Vitalik,
this.
you're still listening, Vitalik.
No,
We're-
I'm right in the
venue.
middle
Yeah.
of all this, but at the end of the day, I'm going to the furthest degree of decision making necessary, right? I'm sitting in the middle, but at the end of the day, a person has to decide, where do the
No,
intentions lie?
they do not have to decide.
No, you
I
do.
love everything Elon's doing, but that's what's so seductive and potentially dangerous about it. Like, he's showing people like me and you and all of us, quite frankly, like, exactly what we want to see. He's punching all the people in the face we want him to punch in the face. He's doing all the things we want to do. And it could very well be a sleight of hand act, because at the end of the day, this isn't a public company anymore. It's a private
could
company
be.
that's very powerful, controlled by one guy.
It
and we
could
should
be a
wary
sleight of
that.
hand act, but you still have to ask one fundamental question. Is it for a good purpose or a bad
I
purpose?
am asking that question, and I think
Right.
you should be pricing in bad purpose very high.
You have to.
I'm happy with incremental progress. Like, if he's not giving everything, at least he's giving more than everybody else fucking gave.
Everybody has ever given. No one has even come close to the degree that he's fighting for these things.
But this is also
matter.
how dictators take over. The first thing they do
No,
is a bunch of
dictators
shit
take
that
over-
everybody likes
No,
and was
no.
yearning
They
for.
take over by killing people.
They kill people. They take people's rights away. They spew hate, racism,
They typically
anti-whateverism.
make a bargain with people for something that they want so badly that they let them in, and then when they have the power, they turn on people.
The dude is trying to fight for fundamental rights that exist in this country. Allegedly.
I hope that's the
So
case.
if the sleight of hand is you like the First Amendment, here you go, but then I'm going to take it away
But he's
from
not
you.
even using the
Is he
First
gonna
Amendment.
take the
He
fir-
banned
No.
Kanye in spite of exactly what he said. Like,
No. That was
and-
because he fucking crossed the line, wasn't it? Although I'm not caught up on
Like
that.
we could do a whole episode.
Let's
on
not
this.
go
I
there.
don't want to go there.
Yeah.
Let's not go there.
I won't.
Thank you.
Won't lift this. This will be a
Thank you.
4-hour
Yeah.
episode. But like, there's a lot of reason to be skeptical. Everybody should be skeptical.
I
Be
mean,
a skeptic.
no one is saying don't be skeptical. But past that
You have
point,
very rose-colored glasses.
every human being has to make a decision at the end of the day, in my opinion. And this is beyond all of this Elon stuff. Do you view the world through a frame that the things that are happening are for the good of humanity, or are we going to all die?
What's the opposite of rose-colored glasses? That's what Steven has.
It's a
Shit colored.
false
Yeah,
dichotomy.
they're shit colored.
It's a false dichotomy. It's like Schrodinger. It's like Schrodinger's cat, right?
How so?
Like, the whole point of that is like you can simultaneously view the cat as like dead and alive. Like, you
Yes.
don't have to pick a side.
Right, I get
and
Schrodinger's
both can
cat.
sort of be.
I get
True.
Schrodinger's cat.
Like,
Tell
the
me
idea that
how.
you have to
Tell me
pick-
how this is Schrodinger's cat.
He's saying like at the end of the day you have to choose a side. I'm like, no, you don't. You can sit on both sides with
No, as a
specific
human,
probabilities.
being, you do. As a human being, you fundamentally have to make that decision.
I'm talking about how you view what Elon's doing.
Well, we're way out there now. So I
saying
agree.
You don't have to
I agree.
make a choice of whether he's good or bad.
But I think you can
sit
extrapolate.
You can sit on the line.
I think you can extrapolate it all to. At the end of the day, it comes down to where you sit as a human being. But yeah, I agree. I think it's very important. I agree with you to view everything that is happening through a skeptical lens. But he is fighting for things that no human being has ever been able to do at this level.
Yeah, an episode like this is just cements the idea that you have to be skeptical, right? Like this is the exact reason why you should be skeptical, because you're vindicated. Like the skeptics are vindicated. They're like,
always
right.
Always the cynics, the critics, the skeptics are always vindicated. But to be optimistic about a person's pursuits takes a lot. It takes a lot, and you're often proven wrong. But there's a place for that. It's necessary to drive humanity forward. If we didn't have people that I believe like Elon, humanity would not progress.
But we also
in any way.
need the Watchdogs too.
We do.
You know? And
Yeah.
you need both.
We're just gonna have to all get lubed up and naked and wrestle one episode and have the Elon good or bad, which is just finally get it out.
I feel like we got it 10%.
I feel like there's so much
there's so
Elon
much more
tension here. It just
I've drunk wrestled Armon, and it does not end well. It does not end well. You lube yourself
Do
up
you
as
still
much as
have
you
those
want.
jeans?
Yeah.
I have holes in my jeans.
Still have
from that day.
raspberries on my fucking knees and elbows. I know.
Yeah, that was really fun.
You're in trouble. I'm very slippery.
I'm a good wrestler. I don't think your pickleball chart and my wrestling chart, power rankings, couldn't be more different. All right, how do we bring this home?
That's it. Just
Is that
end it there. Yeah.
Just end it. Nick looks like he wants. Yeah,
Satisfied.
yeah, you're satisfied.
Nick, would you like
All
to
right.
wrap all of that up?
I think
somehow?
if Nick is satisfied, we're good. We're good.
Buy a mattress.
I'm done.
Buy a mattress, idiot.
I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy Steven and I yelling at each other?
Well, I know Elon's always a fucking hand grenade for both of you.
Yeah, it really is. Because
And you guys also trashed my art studio when you wrestled on the ground,
Oh, yeah.
both of you.
yeah,
Yeah.
Anyway,
oh
Nice.
that's what I was thinking about.
man, I
you
think
know
it comes down to fundamental beliefs about how you see the world. That's my that's my thesis
Okay.
on Elon, and you could apply that to anything.
I also like your guys' little sidebar about, how much should you care about this stuff?
Yeah, that was good.
I do think it's important. I think the Plato quote holds significant weight. But at the same time, I think we all recognize we have a little bit of Eric in us that we all have the internal locus of control. That the idea is that our future is decided by our own actions. And there's only so much weight you should put to this. And so, I don't know, this episode was a good question answer of how much weight, time, mind space should I give to both these? And should I just focus on getting the money?
After yelling at each other for 20 minutes, that is the closure I needed. So thank
Yeah.
you, Nick, for that
Thank you,
eloquent
Nick.
ending.
That's
what I was
won't
looking
say
for.
anything else to ruin
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you. We love you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.